Welcome to the Laughspin.com podcast.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Laughspin podcast. I am Dylan Gadino, the founder and editor of Laughspin.com, which is a place I hope you go to every day for your comedy news, and not just your comedy news, but exclusive interviews with some of your favorite comedians and videos and all that good stuff. I should also tell you that the Laughspin podcast is part of the All Things Comedy Network, which, by the way, was founded by Al Madrigal of The Daily Show and Bill Burr, two of my favorite comedians. And All Things Comedy is basically, it's part podcast network and part comedy collective. So you should definitely check out what's going on there as well at allthingscomedy.com. So back to the podcast. If you're not familiar with the Laughspin podcast, maybe this is your first time listening. If it is, thank you so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. But if it is your first time, or if you're not super familiar with the Laughspin podcast, I'll break it down for you. Basically, every week, me and my co-host Mike, we deliver comedy news basically ripped from laughspin.com and delivered to you via iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and most recently, this site called tunein.com. And sometimes we record special episodes of the Laughspin podcast, which feature interviews with comedians, and that's exactly what you're listening to right now. Today's interview, who's it with? Well, I'll tell you. It's with Kamau Bell. And you likely know him as the host of Totally Biased on FX, which has had a very successful first season. How successful? Well, not only has it been renewed for a second season, but instead of just airing every Thursday night, it's going to run every night of the week. Every night of the week. It's returning September 2nd on FX's new sister network, FXX, and that's going to be awesome. So September 2nd, Totally Biased is going to air every single night on FXX. And that amounts to, by the way, I was doing some research, 130 new episodes of Totally Biased, and FXX is going to be available in 74 million homes. So the point is this, folks. If you don't know Kamau yet, you will very soon, and you'll be a better person for it. I promise you. So 2013 has been a huge year for Kamau, but I'm proud to say I've been following his career pretty closely since probably about 2008, because in 2009 he released an excellent album. It's called Fateful Flower, and you should surely purchase that if you haven't already. He also wrote a great one-man show called The Kamau Bell Curve, Ending Racism in About an Hour, which he performed all over the country as well as overseas. And the reason I mention that show specifically is it would become a huge thing for Kamau because Chris Rock saw him perform the show in New York, and now Chris Rock is the executive producer of Totally Biased. It's actually a really great story, and Kamau tells it in the interview, so I won't talk about that any further because I can't do it justice. Before we start the interview, you should also know that Kamau, as well as the writing staff, who are all stand-up comedians, the entire writing staff of Totally Biased, they're going on a tour this summer starting July 11th in Boston, and you could check out all of the dates at totallybiased.com. All the details are there, links to buying tickets. You should definitely check that out. Like I said, July 11th in Boston is when the Totally Biased stand-up tour starts. And finally, oh my God, I know, I'm sorry. You could fast forward through all of this if you want, if you don't want to hear me spouting anymore. But I do want to mention this. One technical disclaimer, because I'm an idiot. I am an idiot. The first few minutes of the interview with Kamau does not sound the way it should because I messed up the mic settings, but 98% of the audio sounds absolutely perfect. I promise. I apologize. It's completely unprofessional. I could have just lopped off the first few minutes of the interview, but I felt it gave a good context. It was organic. And so I've decided to leave it in. Again, 1,000 apologies. Don't send hate mail because it sounds like it doesn't even sound like shit. It just doesn't sound as good as it should. So I'll shut up. Enjoy my interview with Kamau Bell. Kamau, thank you for having me.
Thank you for wanting to have me.
This has already started off weird.
No, this is the way I like to start things off.
We're having each other.
Yes. I like to start things off on a note of sincerity. I know that's not an East Coast thing.
No, I'm all about sincerity.
Yes.
I need to know that some of what I do is appreciated. Otherwise, I'd go home and hate myself more than I usually hate myself.
Well, I'll say this. I used to read Laughspin every day, and then once I got totally biased, I stopped because I was afraid I was going to learn the truth about something that was connected to my show. So I have sort of avoided it.
Really?
Yeah. Because I wanted you to have your journalistic integrity. I just didn't want to have to hear about it.
Okay. What truth would that have been?
You know, we're chugging along. There's some stuff.
I see.
There's things that could be torn apart and things. If I had a blog about my show that I wrote, I would be like, what the hell was that last night?
Oh, I see.
So there's things I would be like, and so I feel like you are one of the voices of the comedy community, and it's very possible that you could have some opinions.
Right.
I read some of the stuff about. I did end up checking in with the whole Lindy West and Jim Norton thing.
Yeah.
Which that's all opinion stuff. I can never go on.
Yeah. That had less to do with your show, and I had some.
You had some opinions.
I had some strong opinions.
You had some strong opinions, but I felt like that's why. I say we. That's why we did it, and I did it, because I knew they would elicit strong opinions. And,
yeah. Would you say that was that the most... What
whatever you're going to say, probably yes.
Yeah.
It was the most a lot of things. What?
So that I was going to say the most, like, high profile. Did that get...
Yes.
That was it?
That's our... we don't have big viral clips. But I think it's our number one clip. Lewis Black weirdly was our number one clip. My interview with Lewis Black, because he said something about Romney being Jamaican, and for some reason people were like, that Lewis Black guy! Like, they just, I think it was funny, but people really responded big to it, so it had like 200,000. And so this is now past that is our biggest clip.
Yeah.
And it just sort of keeps ticking up. And it also just got a lot of like blog attention. And, and it got like everybody had an angle on it. So,
it's a hot button issue, as they say in the biz.
Which is funny because when the show started, Tosh, that thing just happened with Tosh.
Oh, right.
We actually was when we were pre-production. That thing happened with Tosh in the club where he may have allegedly said, because we don't know because there's no recording of it. But
right.
And at the time I was like, man, if we were on right now, we would somehow have to cover that.
Yeah.
And so it was like a year later. It was like, oh, we can now weigh in on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if the people listening don't know what we're talking about yet,
not viral.
The context is basically Lindy West, who is a writer for Jezebel, which is a feminist kind of entertainment site, and Jim Norton, who is a well-known stand-up comedian who does a lot of what you would call blue humor, very honest, very kind of just displays himself open, very self-effacing, very revelatory, if you will. So Lindy and Jim kind of debated about the concept of rape jokes, if rape jokes are acceptable, if you should do rape jokes.
Actually, let me.
Yeah, go.
I don't think neither one of them or me said rape jokes are acceptable. I think Lindy was talking about there's the trope of rape jokes is something that a lot of comics lean on.
Sure.
And most comics in general are bad.
Yeah.
But when you lean on the trope of rape jokes and are bad, it sort of creates ickiness. I think is what she was going for.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people really responded as if Lindy had said no rape jokes, but she was like, she actually made a rape joke during the thing. I don't think she doesn't know rape jokes. She just has...
which I feel like I was the only one to point that out.
I saw a couple people. Some people pointed out, but it was like they thought they were catching her. And it was like, no, she's not against... She had a blog about rape jokes that were funny before she came on our show.
Right. Still, I thought it was a little odd that she would drop a rape joke.
So I think this is why I like that debate. It's a very... We sort of built this comic versus feminist, which pissed the feminists off real bad.
Right.
And I've been called a male feminist, so I lost some credit that day. I never claimed that spot. I feel like it's like you can't call yourself handsome. Somebody else has to call you handsome. So like, I can't call myself a feminist. It's just something that a title. It's an honorary title. So like I got like you could, but I was like, no, we were trying to create a dichotomy that exists on the internet where feminists and comics argue a lot about this.
Right.
And so, but we got the two most nuanced people. They were my only choices. Like it was like I know Lindy from her writing. I know she can be funny. She's never done TV before, and if anything, that was her big deficit, was that she just doesn't do a lot of TV or hasn't done TV before. And Jim, of all the sort of school of like sort of like I don't know what to call it, that East Coast sort of like, fuck you, you're all dumb. And I'm being silly, but yeah, of that aggressive attack comedy, he's the most sensitive by far. And so I knew that in the argument he wasn't ever going to turn to her and be like, you're a fucking dummy. Which there are a lot of that school of comics who would have done that at some point. So I was just like, not that they're not funny, but I didn't want to create a fake Fox News environment. I wanted them to be able to have a discussion with them.
Understandable.
Yeah, and I think it went well. No, it did. I mean, it certainly brought up some issues, but at the same time, I think it's something that can really weigh down just the concept of comedy, and I think we just have to not move past it, not ignore it.
Well, but here's what I think. I'm sorry.
No, go.
I'm going to interrupt on my interview.
No, do it. People don't want to hear me.
But I think that the thing I think about that is comedy. I think comedy is supposed to lead the times. I don't think comedy is supposed to respond to a good comedy. It's supposed to sort of be like Lenny Bruce, like, what is he doing? Nobody's ever done that before.
Right.
And not everybody's got to be that. I think, you can be clean and do that too. And I think that right now, the future has come to a place where you can't expect that you're only talking to the people in the room. Like that the stage is some sort of like sacred place. Whatever happens there is separate from humanity. And it's like, well, no, it's a place. And it's cool that you do up there, but you're also still in the world. And right now you're more in the world than you were 60 years ago.
Right.
The only people who know what Lenny Bruce got arrested for are the people who are in that room.
Yeah.
Whereas now we kind of all think we know what Tracy Morgan said in Nashville because a blog was written about it.
Right.
So I think I think comics just have to like understand that like you can say what you want to say, but you're also connected to the world in a different way than you were 20 years ago.
Right.
I'm not telling anybody to say what they say.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair, and there is I think that's totally fair. Yes, there's free speech, and yes, comedians should be able to say what they want on stage, but comedians should also understand that people are allowed to, and this is one of the things I think I really agreed with Lindy.
That was the first point she made, and it really could have been like, good night, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, and people are allowed to
call you a dick.
They could call you a dick. They can react any way you want.
I just think that generally the pushback from, like, once that pushback starts happening, the feminist side rarely gets to, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to rape you, nobody would fuck you. I think that's where it becomes this like, wait, can't we just debate? Like, can't we just talk about this?
Right.
Like, and I think that's the part. Like, I can't imagine. Jim Norton is a hilarious comic. I can't imagine having his fans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're certainly hardcore. They'll do anything for him. I think he could be like, run through that wall and into the ocean. And they would be like, we'll try. But I can't imagine, like, sort of that energy surrounding me at all times,
Yeah, and I mean that's and it's a shame. Like I'm a longtime Jim Norton fan. I'm also a longtime Maria Bamford fan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you know? I mean, I don't agree with. I mean, not agree, but people who only subscribe to one type of humor, I don't get. Just like music, I like different. I mean, certainly I don't like every type of music, but within a certain spectrum, I do.
Your Spotify playlist has a lot of things going on.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes I want to hear some electronica.
Exactly.
Sometimes I want to, listen to this shit I grew up with.
Yes.
Some Slayer.
Sometimes you want to remember high school.
That's right. But I listen to everything. So I mean, I consider myself a huge Jim Norton fan. However, I have been to his shows and I have seen some people that let's say I do not relate to, to put it mildly. And I think, the fact that he had to come out and tell his idiot fans to stop being idiots.
Yes.
Because I think they feel like they see Jim Norton and they think he's funny because on the surface, he tells a lot of, blue jokes, says a lot of crazy things, and they're attracted to that superficial aspect of his comedy.
Yes.
But they don't get the sensitivity that runs through all of his comedy.
I think on some level they probably do get it, and they sort of feel like, I wish I could do that with what I wish I feel shitty too. I'm not as eloquent and funny as that. He's doing it, so he's my hero. And if you ever say anything against him, I'm not gonna kill you, but I'm gonna say I'm gonna kill you. You know what I mean?
You think that's what it is?
I think they've so taken. It's the same thing with Patrice. There's some comics that people take so deep into their heart.
Yeah.
And also especially those comics who have an edge, that then people feel like that's not a comic, that's my guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think there's a style in the East Coast that does that to people in a way that it does. Like, there's a style of East Coast comedy. I say East Coast comedy, which I'm sort of being sort of reductionist, but there's just that sort of comedy seller, like, sort of like, that, Aziz performs at the Comedy Cellar, but I'm not putting him in that thing that, like, I don't necessarily know that people are like, if you talk about Demetri Martin, I'm going to kill you. Like, and Demetri's popular and people love him, but I just think there's a thing about, like, these sort of like these guys who position themselves as underdogs,
right?
That that the underdogs like them, but then there's this real sort of like, as Lindy was talking about, as I've seen before, and I opened for Jim years ago. He doesn't remember it because I didn't do well.
Well, then it's good he didn't remember,
and I don't blame him. But yeah, it was just like, that's not my crowd, and I got through it. But yeah, that's like, there's sort of like, I like him and things like him.
Yeah, and
I'm not here to see things that aren't like him.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a shame.
But, I think Jim is, let me be clear, he's a great comedian.
Yeah.
He's and I'm happy for him in his success because he's a very specific type of comic that doesn't exist, that uses vulnerability as a part of his appeal.
Right.
And, not many comics are brave enough to do that, which is why when we decided to do it, I was like, Jim Norton and Lindy West.
Right.
And, I don't think it was the best version of debate ever in the history of television, but the thing I like about Totally Biased is that discussion wasn't happening anywhere else.
Yeah.
That 6 minutes of television wasn't happening anywhere else that night, and I felt like that's what the show, when it's at its best, it's like, you can't see this anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't go, oh, this is like the Daily No. this is like it's like the Black Daily Show. You can't say it's that. Oh, it's just like Fallon. Like, no, and that's as we lean into 4 days a week in the fall, like that, we're going to be doing more things like that. And other things, there was a lot of things. I'm trying to think. That show was probably my favorite show of the season as I look at the lineup of things, because it was just like, none of the things we did that show are things you were going to be able to flip to another channel and see.
Yeah.
So, and to me, I thought was all funny, and also from a perspective that's not represented.
Speaking of The Daily Show, has anybody yet in the media called you the Black Jon Stewart?
I think before the show premiered, that was just sort of the assumption. Mm-hmm. Black guy talking about politics, but I think the first 6 episodes, because we were up against the election, and so every week we were sort of like having to like probably use a lot of the same clips as The Daily Show is doing, but we don't have the production staff they have, so they do it better because they're amazing. Like, we sort of probably felt a little like the Black Daily Show, but once Barack won, which I was like, yay, good for America, but great for me, because we can get off this dude's nuts. We can just sort of like now, there's weeks where we don't talk about Barack and don't think to, and like last week we had a Barack chunk that we cut because we were like, this is stupid, we don't need to talk about this. Mm-hmm. We'd rather talk about Paula Deen and whatever else we had last week. It was like, let's keep it moving.
Right.
So the fact that we don't feel like we're taking homework from the news, we get to sort of cherry pick the stories that we want to do.
Yeah,
makes it feel less like that. Like, I don't think anybody would confuse us with the Black Daily Show now, because I think we've sort of like, when we're writing a bit and I'm not going, well, what's the Daily Show going to do on this? I feel good. Like, of course the Daily Show is going to do Paula Deen, but I also feel like we're just going to do it in a way that's not like them. And I saw that you posted our clip and their clip, and I feel like, perfect. Like, it's not like, oh, they did the same jokes. No, we are coming from different comic perspectives at the same issue.
Yeah, and that's something you have to be. I think this way constantly too. a lot of people do interviews with comedians, or you just have to you have to tell yourself, well, maybe you're going to bring something different to it, a different perspective, a different tone.
And I think you have to actually actively, I mean, I'll say this about myself. I'm going to say, you know what a person has to do? No, what I have to do is I have to actively figure out what am I doing here that is different, and sort of lean into that, and sort of not, because I think sometimes when the cameras are on and the thing, you sort of automatically become some shell of yourself because you're just like, I'm just trying to read the prompter and get through this. Yeah. But it's something you have to okay, but what do you want to say here? And I think that for example, we did a piece about George Zimmerman a couple weeks ago that ended with this huge rant. And it was just this really I got to sort of, I was like, as I said to the writers, I want to do the definitive character assassination on George Zimmerman. That was the, I was just I feel like that's not a thing that other people are saying necessarily in the writer room. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And so we wrote this thing that I was really proud of, really happy with. And it was just instead of saying, I want to talk about George Zimmerman, I was like, no, the thing I want is I want to definitively assassinate his character.
Right.
and I feel like we did a good job of that. So I think that's one thing I've learned over time. In my stand-up act, it's easier to do that because I'm only writing for myself and the audience. But there's all these pieces, and it just when I walked in when we heard it last week, it was I was just still I got an office. There's too many separate pieces to think about to put it together. And now it's yeah, I got it's I'm not taking it for granted, but it's I'm starting to. It's like the Matrix.
Yeah.
Everything's like the Matrix.
By the way, I should tell the listeners that we are currently in your office.
Yeah.
And like you said, I was here a year ago, and you've done basically zero decorating.
Yeah, there's a big.
The walls are bare. There's a few boxes of cereal.
Yeah. I do that so I get the Seinfeld mojo. No, I very actively didn't put things on walls because I felt like that was bad luck to sort of
you were being cocky.
Yeah, we all know that it doesn't make sense to have a TV show, so let's not nail things.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just I more than anybody else am sort of this is a weird. I'll write a book one day about the summer I had a TV show, and but I don't need to sort of get I don't want to scuff the desk, because I'll have to pay for it. So, so yeah, and also I don't spend that much time in here actually.
Yeah.
During the show, because there's just a lot. Everything's happening out there. It's all the edit, the writer's room, other producers' offices. It's all happening out there. Very little of it's happening in here.
Right.
I sort of would rather be out there amongst getting in the stuff than sort of summoning people to the.
Yeah. So you mentioned your stand-up. So I mean, and Barack Obama, you were probably one of the first comedians who was writing jokes about Barack Obama. Yeah. This is when he was.
I wrote jokes about Senator Obama.
Right, that's right. Yeah. When he was in Chicago.
I was an early Obama adopter.
That's right. That's right. And now through the years, I mean, definitely the shine has.
The bloom is off the road.
Yes, that.
Yes.
That.
Yeah. I didn't want to use the word shine and black guy. That just seems weird.
Yeah, that's
Black guy's not as shiny as he used to be.
All of a sudden, I'm racist.
Get your shine box, Obama.
This is excellent. We should talk about his shoes and. So how, in your mind and in your stand-up, how has that kind of evolved? Where are you at? What's your relationship with Barack at this point?
It's still the same. He won't return my calls. My relationship is that basically it's I'm glad, I'm glad he's the president and not Mitt Romney.
Right.
There's nothing about that I could be, I certainly felt like those 6 episodes, which I think was a little bit good for FX for letting us go past that, because it was we were sort of working as his campaign team, I think. And then when we finally did a joke against him, we made a big deal about it on the show. I certainly feel like I say in my act, it's he sucks because he's the president.
Right.
That's just the default mechanism of being the president. You suck. If you let the president think he's awesome, you're not doing your job as the people. Mm-hmm. And so he sucks. And Obama's got a lot of things he sucks at. Maybe you don't kill Americans with drones so much, big guy. Maybe that Guantanamo thing that you promised, maybe we should close that down. Maybe stop being so afraid of the fucking Republicans. There's just a lot of things that he sucks at that I get to be you're not doing this right, you're not doing this right.
Right.
While at the same token, I also get to go, hey, stop being racist to the president. You know what I mean? So it's a very complicated relationship because I want to be able to tell him he sucks, while at the same time, it's like I have to defend him against the onslaught of the ridiculous right. So it's it's kind of like just being black in America in general. It's very complicated.
It's like when you talk shit about your spouse and then somebody agrees with you.
Yeah. Hey. I can call her that, but you can't. Yeah. So it's a very, so I think, and also in my stand-up act, like I was so sort of deeply invested in him for such a long time that I actually really enjoy now when I do a set, I go, I didn't bring up the president once. Like there was such a weird like responsibility. I think there's just a thing, Chris talks about this too, like, and I felt this before I met Chris too, that you sort of, I think I felt this is what sort of led my act to be
Chris who, Kamau?
Chris Broussard, ESPN sportscaster. He gives me a lot of advice. Christopher Julius Rock, yes, who is the
very
producer
nice
of the show, known as Chris Rock. Yeah. I never know how to do that. Dylan, I've got to be honest. I feel like when I go, just like Chris Rock says, I sound like I'm dropping a name. But if I say Chris, then I sound like I'm being an asshole. Oh, Chris who? Chris Rock. Anyway, there's no winning here. There's no way to say it, because it always sounds a little bit like I'm talking about like Spider-Man. Well, it's like Spider-Man says.
Right.
It's just like there's no way to get through this.
What do you call him? Black Jesus? Is that you that calls him Black Jesus?
I call him Foul-Mouthed Yoda.
Oh, Foul-Mouthed. Who's Black Jesus?
A lot of people. A lot of people have been Black Jesus.
All right, so sorry.
No problem. We digress. I refer to Black Jesus a lot, but I'm not specifically thinking of him.
Oh, okay.
He's Foul-Mouthed Yoda. Because he says a lot of things that aren't always grammatically correct.
Right.
Have really good advice in them, and I can't repeat them to my wife. It's like you're fucking a woman. Really? TV production is like that, Chris? So I'm not actually too far off of analogies he's giving me. So, what was the question?
What were we talking about?
It's like Chris said. Oh, no, but being the black guy, like I always felt that from the moment I started doing comedy, like I would step on stage in front of a white audience, I suddenly felt like I had to represent for the black people who weren't there. Like I always felt that pressure. It's because of how my mom raised me. So I felt like I can't, like, even though I'm inherently a goofy person, I had to sort of regulate that because I didn't want people to be like, all black people are just flopping around on stage like goofballs. So I really felt like I had to sort of like, let me sort of regulate how you get this and monitor this, and before I just sort of get, and yet I came up mostly in white comedy clubs, so I didn't play a lot of black rooms. So, and I feel like that on the show, like Chris has said this, it's like when you're on TV, especially in the position of being like, like until Deion Cole, I was the only black guy who had that kind of show,
right?
And so he's like, you're the guy, you're the,
you're the representative.
You have to wield that power effectively, and if you say something like if you're critical of black people, you can be, but just understand that then that looks like you're outside.
Right.
Which you can be, he's like, do whatever you want to do, but just understand you have to think about how you're doing it. Like, so if you're going to decide to be critical of, like, if you're going to say black people, make sure you say us. So that it's not like, what are these blacks doing? It's like, what are we doing? Because then it's like, and it's little things like that make a huge difference.
Right.
And, I mean, like right now, like I bring up Deion Cole. I just got some tweet. I'm getting these tweets, not all the time, but like Deion Cole show and your show. Either they're like, he's ripping me off, or he's the funnier version of me.
Right.
And it's like, it's not the Highlander. There can be two. There can be more than one black guy on TV talking about what's going on. Nobody's talking about that with Conan and Fallon and Leno and Letterman and Ferguson. Like,
right.
There's this sort of sense that we have to we only get one through at a time. And it's like, I think Arsenio's coming back soon. I can't wait. Let him take all that black talk show heat.
Yeah, that's frustrating when people think they're doing you a favor, and what they're doing is just highlighting the marginalization of like.
Yeah, and it's also and it feels like when people tweet at you, if I don't respond, I'm afraid that somehow Deion Cole's going to get back to him like, come out, didn't say anything about that tweet. He must agree with it. Not that I think he's as weird on Twitter as I am, but I just feel like it's like I'm thinking about writing a thing for Huffington Post about that. Just like there can be more than one. Like, why are we? It's 2013.
There should be more than one.
Yeah, we have all the information in the history of the world in our pockets. We can have two black guys on TV talking about current events.
Yeah. You mentioned you mentioned your mom briefly, and I just remembered in Aspen all those years ago. I actually met your parents.
Yes, you did.
who, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're lovely people.
That's a take on them. That's one take. No, they are. My mom has a very winning personality. And
Yeah.
It's like she's just very much like she's the older black lady people want to be around.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
just has that vibe about her that people are like. I feel like if she likes me, I'm cool. And my dad is like, literally has signed. People have asked him for autographs because they think he's Dr. J. So it's like those are my parents. Like they. But behind that.
And your mom, if I remember correctly, I think you once told me your mom was an activist.
Yes.
So she's
Still is.
very, very strong. You had very strong, very smart parents.
Yeah, no, I have.
Which isn't surprising, but
It's funny, like,
which is not surprising.
Have very strong and smart parents. Yeah, you. No, I sort of let them down.
Come on.
No. They're both. My dad walks around because they've both been to tapings of the show, and my dad shows up quite often because he lives here part time. He sort of walks around like he's the president of show business. Like he's very like he's like shaking hands and good to have you here. Thanks for working on the show, dude. What are you talking? Why are you telling the caterer thank you for working on the show? He works here every day, So, but yes, no, they are, but they're both self-starters, and I think that's the one thing that, even though they don't like to be in the room at the same time as each other, the one thing they have in common is that they're both like sort of self-created people, and so, despite the fact I went this sort of weird circuitous route. Like I think I took that from them. Like, no, you got to make your own gravy. You got to you can't. If you don't want to do things the way other people do it, then you have to actively be engaged in making your own gravy.
Right.
So I think that my dad has done that through the corporate world by creating it, by sort of looking at him as like the Tiger Woods. I'll just be better than you. It's hard to make that analogy anymore. The old Tiger Woods.
Oh, come on. You could still make it.
No, but
we all make mistakes.
Yeah, we all make. I know.
12 or 13 times.
Exactly. Yes. Hey, if we were all the best golfer in the world at 18, we might have our moral compasses might be a little bit off.
Right.
And also billionaires, but yeah. So there's the Tiger. My dad's like that. I'll just be better than you, not work you. My mom's like, I'm just gonna go over here and make my own thing and sell my own stuff and create my own products. And so I sort of think that's the thing I got from both of them.
Yeah.
Which is why I was able to sort of but found myself in this weird position of Chris Rock sort of helping me get a TV show, even though I was not aimed in TV show direction.
Yeah, you were doing. I know you've told the story to me, but I always find it very, very fascinating. So Chris Rock basically, he saw you were doing your show at the UCB, your one-man show, right?
Yeah.
And how to tell the story, if you can.
The story that goes increasingly more apocryphal. Well, I was 8 years old. I was, I had written this in 2007. I was really sort of growing frustrated with comedy. I just was feel like I wasn't able to communicate what I was trying to communicate. I felt like I wanted to talk about racism and race a lot more, but audiences were like, not so much. So I wrote this one-man show out of frustration because I was involved in this solo show performance community in San Francisco. And so I wrote a show that had PowerPoint and visuals and all sorts of stuff, and it sort of not quick. I thought I didn't know I had a following in San Francisco, but the first time I did it in like a 50-seat theater or standing room only, and so I sort of just kept doing it and did it for 3 years pretty aggressively and really enjoyed it, and sort of I still did stand up, but I was really out of the clubs. I wasn't trying to become a headliner anymore. I was just I was just doing the show. And took it to festivals, and took it to Scotland, and brought it to New York a couple times in festivals. Took it to LA at the Comedy Central Theater. Met Paul Stein, who ended up directing it there, or directed in a lot of places. And then I just was I brought it to New York in October 2010 to do just one night at UCB, which at the time I was like, why am I flying all the way? Because UCB doesn't pay.
Right.
They have this cool thing where they don't pay.
Yeah.
And so, which is awesome when you're out of town. And so I'd I'm flying myself to New York to do this thing. And at that point, I'd met Chuck Sklar, who's an executive producer on the show, and he's worked with Chris since the Chris Rock show.
Right.
And he had told me that he'd shown Chris my clips. But there's just that thing. I feel like when I tell the story, and this is what I'm telling the good version, as a comic, comics, you're kind of only 3 degrees of separation from everybody if you've been doing it for a while. So yeah, I've opened for Chappelle. oh, that guy knows Chris Rock. He says I'm funny.
Right.
I used to open for Dave Attell. Like, it's just a lot. Like, I'm not putting anything on anybody. You know, Marin sometimes talks to me. Like, I had a lot going on.
Sometimes.
I had a lot going on. So it's not that thing where I was like, oh, Chris Rock thinks I'm funny. I was like, oh, good, Chris Rock thinks I'm funny. But there wasn't a sense that I was like, it was just, oh, that's good to know. Maybe one day I'll open for him.
Right.
Was really, which I'd still like to do. So then I came here in October 2010, did the show at UCB. It was a full show, like a full audience. A lot of black people that night, which anybody who knows UCB knows that was my draw. That was
Yep.
I didn't realize it at the time, but now since I've been back, I'm like, oh, that was me. And that's a great space performance. It's just not a lot of blacks.
Yeah.
Or browns or yellows or reds. So I do the show. It was just a really great show. There was like these real sort of improv-y moments that happened that some didn't always, it was clear it was happening in the moment because I was talking to people. And so afterwards, I sort of step off and walk backstage, and I'm sort of doing that post-show like, man, I'm a genius. Man, I may be the greatest comedian of all time. I'm not sure, but we'll see when the results come in. I'll get the email tomorrow from the Comedy Museum. And my manager walked, and just having that like breathing heavy, but it's UCB, so it's like 8 people back there ready to do the next show.
Yep. Costumes.
Yeah, we're the zany police. And so I was like, so I was just sort of like having this moment. My manager walks backstage, Carrie, who with this weird look on her face, which I really remember being like, why has Carrie got such a weird look on her face? And right behind her is Chris, who I've never seen in person. I've seen him perform like at the Paramount Theater in Oakland, right before he did Never Scared, but I'd never seen him in life before. And it was just he's wearing like his driving cap that he always wears, and he just sort of like floats backstage, like really just sort of like, and just walks up to me and goes, "Hey, man." And I don't really remember how it started. Suddenly he's talking to me, and inside I'm like, like I just like but trying to maintain some, because it's like, again, I know I opened for Chappelle a bunch, and that used to be weird when I first met him. But it's also like there's that thing where you know, as a comic, when you work with famous comedians, but he's like, again, he's like a Jedi. He's like, it's not, it's a different level. He's at that like if Cosby walked in here right now, I'd be like, you guys got to go. Like, there's just a level of like, this is an icon. And so I was inside just like trying to listen, but also like I'm sweating, my ears are buzzing. And he's like, hey, man. And he really was like, hey, man, yeah, so you were funny. And he sort of said, like, he sort of threw it away. You're funny. Like, not like, I have finally found the one. He was like, yeah, man, you were funny. Whatever that means, take it for what it means. I don't think a lot of people are funny. I think like 8 people are funny, and now you're one of them. So, whatever. And I'm just like sort of trying to take all this in. Right. And yes, right. And and he's like, and he sort of starts firing off questions. Where do you live? San Francisco. Move. There's nothing there. You got to go to New York or L.A. I was just on the phone with Seinfeld. He's like, where are you going? I said, I'm going to show about racism. That's right, because he's calling me because it's New York and we're all here. You got to go to New York or L.A. San Francisco's got nothing for you. At the time my wife was pregnant, I'm like, we're not going anywhere soon. And he was like, all right, man. Well, cool. Yeah, you're funny. And he sort of talked about the fact that I clearly had. He's like, yeah, people throw a lot of stuff. You can handle anything people throw at you. You did a lot of talking with the audience. And so he noticed that, which is funny because I don't think of that as being one of my things. But like through the one-man show, I developed that sort of like ability to go into the crowd and talk to people. He's like, yeah, clearly you can throw a lot of stuff at you. You can handle it. All right, man. And it probably lasted, I'm going to say 5 minutes. I think it was 10, but it was probably 5. Which means it was 3. You know what I mean? Like it was not that long, but it was just like a really like, I'm gonna say it was 5 minutes, and then he leaves. He insults my agent on the way out, which was hilarious. Like
he genuinely insults her,
just in the way that Chris does. Not Carrie, my agent.
Your agent,
this guy from William Morris. He's sort of like because he was like, he's this little guy, and he sort of was clearly wanting to meet Chris, and he's sort of, oh, look at this guy. Like, it was just one of those things, like, take this with you. And he's gone. And then I'm just sort of standing there, and me and Carrie, and we're all like, what was that? That was that. And, then I had pizza. Like, it was, like, I went with my friends, and they were like, we were waiting for you out here. What happened? Well, Chris Rock came back, and then like that was October, and then I say January. Chuck said, Chris, I think Chris is gonna call you, and I was like, all right, but I sort of again, it was just this like. I heard there was something he might be working on a book or something, and maybe somebody to help. So I was like, all right. But then he called. In like January, I get a call, and I told all my friends, and so my phone rings, unlisted number. That means he's using my dad. I don't know why. I pick up the phone. I'm like, hello, hey, it's Chris Rock, but he doesn't sound like Chris Rock because he's not screaming and being like. This is very like low key.
Right.
And I was like, no, it's not, because I was sure it was a friend of mine. It's just that dumb story. I thought it was from my fucking with me, but it wasn't. It was Chris. He starts, man, don't believe it's not me. Da, 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 da. And then we sort of talked about the Chicago Bulls, and he said, I want to do a show with you. And that was like basically, okay. I said, okay. He's like, unless you don't want to do a show with me, maybe you have other ideas. No, that's fine. Like, it was really like maybe that's how he is. He's really like, we can do it or not do it. It's up to you. But, you know, I think he's like, black guys. He's like, unfamous black guys don't get TV shows, so you're going to need my help. Unfamous white guys get TV shows all the time, but unfamous black guys never get TV shows. So I think I want to help you get a show, and all right, well, we'll let all the agents agent up and figure it out, and and that was basically, and then, but it really took, like, I flew out to New York, met with him and Chuck. After that, nothing happened for a long time, and I thought I'd fucked it up. I thought I'd like not impressed him at the meeting, and so that summer, like that July, me and Chuck and a bunch of San Francisco people got together and made a pilot,
right,
and then sent it to him. And it was shot pretty dark and looked weird. And he's like, all right, I see it, but we can't sell this to a network. Then he put money into it, and then we and this is the same time he was on Broadway doing the motherfucker.
Right.
And my wife had a baby, so we were both busy. So like,
yeah.
And then so then that November, right before Thanksgiving, he put money into a pilot. We shot it in Santa Monica, the Santa Monica Playhouse on the Promenade, and we had edited it by January. I think he took it. I think he only took it to FX. Like, he didn't take it to a bunch of places.
Interesting.
He like basically said, tomorrow I'm having lunch with John Landgraf.
Right.
You know,
head of FX.
Head of FX. And he sort of said, so I'm gonna have lunch with John Landgraf, and he's probably gonna want to meet with you, and the way Chris talks is like, these are all sort of like, I'm going to meet with him. He's going to meet with you, and then we'll probably get like some sort of 6-episode pilot deal. And you're like, dude, that's funny. I'm thinking, slow down, Chris Rock. You don't understand how show business works. But that's all what happened.
Yeah.
By the time I met with John Landgraf, it was in L.A., in FX's headquarters with like probably 6 or 7 executives in the room. And I was like expecting to go in and have to be like, hey, I'm a guy and I'm not famous, but it's going to be okay. But John Landgraf walked in and said, I feel like we're already married. We just haven't met yet. And then they were selling me on what they could do.
Wow.
And so it was literally like it was all like the actual getting of the show is the easy thing that's ever happened to me in my show business career. Being the comedian up to that is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. Like, so it's like I just want to make sure people understand. If Chris Rock's on your side, it's a little bit it's easier to sort of get the doors open. But he wasn't on my side for the first 15 years, so that was pretty hard.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, you paid your dues.
You know, I paid some dues. I don't, I certainly know, we all know comics who've been out there longer and hard. There's always people who've been out there longer and harder and who are talented who didn't get through for one reason or another and didn't get the opportunity. So I certainly don't want anybody to feel like I think that I feel like I deserve it. I certainly feel like now that I've presented with it, I'm going to bust my ass to keep it, because I'm proud of it, and I'm proud of the fact that I'm employing my friends and a lot of other people that I've met. There's a lot of talented people on the show, but I certainly don't want anybody to get the impression that I'm like, that's right, I got a TV show. I think there's something about Chris is at that Dr. Dre phase of his career where he's trying to like put projects together for other people.
Right.
So while he also does Grown Ups too and directs his own movie and becomes his own Woody Allen.
Yeah, that's right. He's shooting now. I think they're in pre-production with that new flick where he plays a stand-up comedian.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's going that Woody Allen direction. Just do what you know. You ain't got to always be a cartoon cell inside of somebody's body.
Yeah.
You always got to be a zebra. Just be a guy who's a comedian who goes through life.
And so now you're going. You were on every Thursday night. Now you're going 4 days a week.
Yes.
And so that's got to be what what is happening now? What steps? I mean, that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Is your
yeah.
is your life going to become just? I mean, you're busy already. Four nights a week is nuts.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, for the first 13 episodes, one day a week was almost killing us, like the staff and me, because a lot of us hadn't worked on a show like this before. And then the last 13, it's gotten a lot easier. So by the time we got to the last 3 episodes this season, it was like there was a lot of time like, well, guess we just got to wait for Thursday. Like there was really just
right.
We sort of figured out not to overwrite, not to sort of plan things out in advance so you don't do it all on Thursday. Maybe we should order that costume today. So yeah, I mean, I think that's what FX was looking for, like because they always wanted a stripped show, as they call it. That we could figure out how to make our things, that we weren't going to be crazy, and I think that we got to that point, and we were always writing too much material. That's why we have a lot of web extras, because we'd always shoot too much. So
which is great, which is almost a necessity at this point, because you need that web, you need that.
Yes, we need.
It's
stuff.
not just a television show.
No, we were off the air for 10 weeks, and we were able to release a clip every week for 10 weeks that we just had banked from not having.
Yeah, you got to keep people.
Yeah.
Engaged constantly.
Absolutely. So I think that I think we sort of like started to create our processes around here to sort of like in a way sort of prepare for the fall, but we know we're not prepared. We're going to staff up. We're going to hire a few more comics and writers. We've done a really good job, I think, of bringing outside comics to perform on the show. I'm really proud of the fact, and I want the show to become more that a place for comics to come on and not just do their sets, like to come on, like Hannibal's come on and done a couple pieces that were written for the show. We just had Zach Sherwin come on here and do a rap that he had never done anywhere else before. Mike Lawrence did that thing that, like, we're also really good at writing these niche pieces that are funny, but then on the internet they find a life of their own, because like his piece was all about fast food workers' rights, and now all these fast food workers blogs are like, this is what we're talking about, but in a funny way. We did the piece about cat calls. And that keeps finding a life of its own. Like, women are like, this is what I'm talking about, but in a funny way. So I think that's kind of what I think we really do well, is sort of writing these niche pieces that play broad, but also help support the people who need the thing, So
yeah.
But yeah, right now we're staffing up. We're actually on hiatus technically right now, although I'm here with you, obviously. We're gonna come back early August and do and I'm gonna go out and shoot a bunch of man on the street stuff, because I'm not gonna be able to do as much of that stuff, and the network likes that stuff, and I like doing that stuff.
So you're gonna bank that?
We're gonna try to bank a bunch of those, and we've already got a couple banked right now, and then I'm gonna try not to die. I got a 2-year-old daughter and a wife. I'd like to not die. But we're gonna shoot a week of test shows. Like just a straight week, as if it's the show,
right?
And just to sort of see if we
dry run,
and then that first week we're actually only doing 2 new shows, because we're premiering on Wednesday.
Okay,
everything on FXX is premiering on Wednesday, so we're gonna premiere on Wednesday, and so we'll only do Wednesday, Thursday that week, and then the following week is like all right, do this shit. So
that's it.
Yeah, so I think I've talked to people who've worked on daily shows. That's one of the reasons we're excited about McCann. I mean, Chuck has worked on Conan and Lopez, but and McCann has worked on Conan with Conan for 17 years through all the various incarnations. Just the idea that he's like, at first you're gonna feel like you're gonna die, and then like 2 months in you'll hit some sort of zone, and you'll just sort of understand how to do it. I'm excited to get to that zone. Like the Daily Show, from what I understand, Daily Show and Colbert, they work like Banks hours, they get there
because they got it done. They got it down
because they got to get it, and you just can't be there 12 hours every day,
right?
You can't sustain that. So I know we're going to be here a little bit at the beginning, but I'm excited to get to that place where it's just like no, it's like a job, like you go there. Right. I'm a little bit worried about how it affects my stand-up career, because you don't see Jon Stewart and going out and doing a big stand-up tour.
No,
I think he sleeps and and re-meets his family. So I still feel like I have a lot more. Like the show is great, and I feel like the show is coming through my voice, and that I'm figuring out how to do TV like that. But I feel like I have a lot more stand-up in me. So I'm sort of said to my manager, Kara, I was like, does this mean I'm retired from stand-up now? I mean, we're about to do a stand-up tour this summer with Totally Biased and a bunch of writers, which I'm looking forward to. But I feel like I have I will be a little bit, like, I feel like I have a great stand-up album in me. I just feel like, and I feel like I'm happy with the 2 I've done. But I feel like there's a great one. I would like to try to put out the great one. You know?
Yeah.
But I just don't know when that happens now.
Yeah.
Everything goes into the show right now. As Chris told me, just put it all in the show. Don't save stuff. Don't just put it all into the show.
It's the pitfalls of being successful, Kamau.
I know I really do feel like there needs to be some sort of AA style group for talk show hosts, so we can all. I feel like there's a lot of things I would like to sort of talk about, but if you say them to your friends, like, "Oh, is that hard? Having a show produced by Chris Rock, is that stressful sometimes? Being on TV, is that a hard? Never mind."
Hey, listen, everything's relative. I can appreciate it.
Everything's relative.
Everything's
but this
relative.
Is real relative. Like this is like. Everything's relative, but this is, and that's the thing. I'm not trying to complain at all, but it's certainly like. The challenge for me is that I had never had any experience doing this before, so there's a steep learning curve, and I'm still on it. But
yeah,
FX has been very generous, and they've seen enough results that they want us to stay on it. So,
are you getting recognized now around town? Has that changed at all for you?
Well, first, it's funny because I get so myopic in my focus about things, ironically, that like when the show was airing, I would come here and do the show, and then I would go home. And so, like, there was a lot of, like, hey, you want to come do a stand-up spot? No, I don't think I can't put that in my brain. Like, I can't. Like,
right.
I can't think about, like, so I was on the subway the other day. Like, I've done a little bit of stand-up, but it's really hard for me to sort of switch my brain out. But so, and I'm living on the Upper West Side now, and that's not my target market, so they don't recognize me up there.
Right.
But whenever I get recognized, I'd say 99% of times by black people, and I think it's that Chris thing about, like, you're that black guy on television. Like, I think it's just that, like, you're him. You're the guy. I've never seen it. I've only seen a commercial, but I'm so happy. I'm so happy. So there's that.
So there's the okay.
But it's funny. The other night I was with my friend Laura House, who is a comedy writer and is a great stand-up comic, but doesn't really do it a lot anymore. Louis C.K. actually mentioned her in his AMA about funny women comedians.
Okay.
And she sort of hadn't worked with him for 10 years, so she was super excited. So we were out down by the Comedy Cellar because we just met down there because it was convenient. And we were sitting in some bar down there. Not the Comedy Cellar, but some sort of like really sort of weird New York bar, like regular bar, and like throughout the night, people kept walking by and be like, "Hey, you're totally," and it was just funny to be like, "Oh, I sort of in some way forget that it airs on TV because I'm so like, do the show, go home, do the show,
right.
Go home, tape this thing, hope the people in this room like it, then go home."
Right.
But yeah, so it's a little bit, but it's New York also. There's right behind me is De Niro or something. Like I'm walking down the street and it's like, hey, black guy, get another way. There's 8 more famous people. There's that guy from New York 1 behind you, so. But yeah, when people have been really cool when they have recognized me, and I'm sort of taking it all like, I still sort of believe, yeah, this is a pretty cool summer I'm having for the last year.
I think that's a good attitude to have. It keeps you level.
I've been around long enough that I can't. There's no sense that I can be like I deserve this, or I earned this, or this is my birthright.
Right.
Because I've seen friends of mine go through that and take that attitude and then sort of go, boom. I think the person I've seen handle it the best is Al Madrigal, because I've known him since he started doing stand-up. And he always just sort of had it like, I think I'm good enough to do this, and I believe in my skills. But if this doesn't work, I'll go on to the next thing.
Right.
And, and that dude did that all the way up to The Daily Show. You know? So it's like that, to me, Al has always been a good example of like, you can be confident in your abilities, but you don't have to be a dick.
Right.
And I think that has gotten him a very long way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good point.
Yeah.
So you're living on the Upper West Side now. When you first moved here, you were in Brooklyn, no?
Well, we were in Brooklyn. Brooklyn didn't, Brooklyn, I liked Brooklyn. We were just not in the right area of Brooklyn to be us, I think is how it.
Yeah.
We had just come from the West Coast. We like Oakland a lot, and we were told Brooklyn is the Oakland of the West Coast.
Okay.
It's not really true. I mean, they both have a lot of black people there. They both are getting gentrified, but it's just the West Coastness of Oakland cancels out their similarities. Like they're just like the West Coastness of Oakland is so laid back, and like sure there's violence and crime, but even that's laid back. But it's just so that like Brooklyn was a little bit like for us to just be dropped in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Like we were, and also we didn't get to really. We just had to find the apartment we found. It's just Brooklyn is they're still rapping about Brooklyn.
Yeah.
If Biggie Smalls was alive, he'd still have fine things to say about Brooklyn. It was just not. it was a little bit gritty for me to be at work all day and my wife and baby to sort of be finding their way around the neighborhood trying to learn the streets. So
Got it.
It just was like, I loved it, but it just was like, I think we'd have to really go back and be real particular about where we lived there.
Right.
But my wife is like, Brooklyn's a myth. It's the emperor's new clothes. So yeah, as I joke in my act out here, like it's weird to be the black guy in Brooklyn, like, this neighborhood leads a little bit more gentrification. It's weird to be the gentrifier asking for a little bit more of that.
Right.
Yeah,
So that's good. And how you have your she's 2 now?
She's 2. She just turned 2 May 25th.
That's amazing.
Yeah, my wife just turned 2 May 25th.
That's even the fact that she's that age and was able to reproduce is a biological anomaly.
We're talking about my daughter.
Oh boy.
Yeah, no.
So yeah, that's I have a 4-year-old and I have a 2.5-year-old.
Jeez.
And it's insane.
We should get baby fights together. I think
Well,
my 2-year-old and your 2.5-year-old.
Let's do it.
Because she's pretty big.
Is she?
Because I'm tall. So
My guy's small.
Oh,
It would be a good fight.
It'd be a good fight. We should get some baby fights going. She's rangy and she'll ground and pound.
Yeah.
She's got good ground game.
Mine's a thrower. Mine will throw, pinch, and bite.
Oh no, she's not a biter. She's really like she's got like good Greco-Roman and she's got good dirty boxing.
I say we throw him in a ring.
Exactly. Yeah, she's got no fear. No, she's great. She literally has no fear, and I'm like, well, where'd you get that from? 'Cause Daddy's afraid of everything. Yeah, she's great. I feel really good. I could see my kid. I really like my kid so much, and she's just generally popular with people. Like, it's funny to be like, you're going to be a popular person, and I'm really happy. Like, I feel like she's really. But I could see having a kid that I wouldn't like. Like, me and my wife talk about having another kid. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like it's possible to have a kid and be like, I don't like this one as much. You know what I mean? I know it's probably not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it does. That doesn't.
It just seems like she's so great. Like, I just feel like I don't want some other kid coming in here and messing this up.
Yeah, no, I thought the same thing.
I'm an only child though, so I got a whole. It just seems like we got it. We knocked it out. You know.
Does your wife have siblings?
Yeah, she's got a brother and 2 sisters. Twin sisters. So she wants to have like 8.
Right.
Whereas I'm like, I don't know. Seems like 1 is good.
I think 2 is okay.
Yeah, I think she would like that 2 to 3 range because I mean her sisters are twins, so I think that's technically but yeah.
Yeah.
3 pregnancies, but I know I would imagine we would have another one, but I'm really enjoying. Because I don't see her enough. It seems like I don't want to have 2 kids. I don't see that often.
Right. Let's have another one so I could feel guilty about not seeing that
about
one.
The hours I work. Because I feel like that kid would be like, who's this guy who comes in every now and again? Like, my daughter knows me, but I feel like that kid would be like, who's this guy who's here on Saturdays? Talking about I need more sleep.
Well, good. I'm glad things at home are going well. Things here.
I didn't say that.
I'm glad. I'm glad you have a home.
There we go. You gotta adjust your expectations.
I mean, you're not in the middle of a divorce. That's good.
No, I'm not in the middle of a divorce.
That's good.
No. Thank you, Black Jesus.
You got to look. You got to look on the bright side of things.
No, things are really. I mean, I'm busier obviously because of the show and because of the tour that's coming up. I'm busier than I've ever been, and there is a side sometimes you're like, when do I get to stop? Like, this is technically my vacation right now, but we're here talking because there's just more stuff to do, and I want to do all. I want to take.
Are you telling me that this is work?
This is work
for you.
Man.
Talking to me.
I'm clocked in for this.
Oh man,
Dylan, I wish we would talk more.
Oh man,
but I know now you got to maintain some distance. No, I'm totally like, I feel very like, in the sense of the word, I'm a black person. Like I say, I feel blessed in the sense that black people can feel blessed and not mean. Like
anything religious.
Yeah. Like I feel like I have a lot of opportunities. I understand that there's only a finite amount of time to pursue these opportunities, and I don't want to look back and go, there's things I'm still having to learn to say no, but I certainly was like, there's things that I have to sort of like, I know I got to take advantage of this because whatever happens with Totally Biased, I still want to have a career in show business. But we're going on 5 days a week. It's on this new network, which we're sort of one of the flagship shows of the network.
Yeah.
It sort of goes from being like, on FX, it's like Louie, Sons of Anarchy, American Horror Story. 15 shows. Whatever's in development. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on in FX.
Yeah.
Russell Brand even has a new pilot deal. You know, and Totally Biased. Whereas now
Totally
it's like
Biased.
The League, Totally Biased, Legit, and It's Always Sunny. That's basically the show.
All going to FXX.
All going to FXX. Yeah.
Meanwhile, FX still has they have the anger management.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going through some changes.
They got Lopez coming.
They have oh my God, I'm going to totally forget. The odd couple who are playing lawyers. Martin Lawrence and
what was it? Martin Lawrence and Joe Piscopo? What is it?
Martin Lawrence and
Piscopo. Oh yeah.
Oh, Kelsey Grammer.
Kelsey Grammer. Yes, Martin Lawrence and Kelsey Grammer.
So I'm going to be tuning into that.
It's like you really just go. I mean, I having been in the FX offices and having talked to John Landgraf, that dude always he's like, it's like a chess player. Like there's reasons, and there's reasons for everything he's doing, even if you don't understand what's happening.
Oh, I believe that.
The 90-10 deal. All these shows are this 90-10 deal. So they're like, maybe Martin Lawrence and Kelsey Grammer will be this undiscovered gold mine of comedy that nobody. And I'm sure he's like, this is a chance nobody's ever thought. He likes things that nobody's thinking about, and so he puts that on the air. It'll be like, oh my God, And if it's not, they'll cancel it after 10 episodes.
But then what happens? Then they still have to get paid, no? No, if they cancel it after the 10.
Yeah, they have.
But once they go to that 11th, and that's it.
Once they go to the 11th, they go the whole.
Then that's 90 episodes, no matter how slowly they want to crank them out.
Yes. So I just think it's the Tyler Perry model, quite actually.
That's right.
Yeah, but
Ice Cube has that deal on TBS.
Yeah, it came from Tyler Perry. Got it with House of Pain and Meet the Browns, and then now it's like a thing that's just sort of floated around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the 26-130 deal.
That's a good deal.
Nothing wrong with that deal. Actually, no, I got the 6 and then 7 and then 13.
Yeah.
And then 130.
Believe me, it was complicated for me to write about.
Yeah, no. Well,
I'm like, so it got renewed, or no? They're just doing more than 6, and then.
Yeah. Well, no, it's because it was funny that some people are like, this season was so short. I go, no, this season started August 9th. Like this season has been. It's been like I would like to look it up. I think we had to have one of the longest first seasons, like as far as a calendar year in the history of television.
Right.
Because we were from August 9th to June 20th. Like that's got to be one of the longest first seasons ever. Yeah. Because usually you go from August, you're done by May. I mean, you're done by spring.
Yeah.
So we
it's
do
good.
things differently here.
It's a scrappy little show. Just crank out new shows whenever.
Yeah.
You take a little 2 weeks off, 6 more come.
It's funny. People are like, some of the people on staff are like, man, this year went so quickly. I'm like, no, it didn't. I could feel every second of this year happen. It was really because every week I was like, we're going to do another show again. All right. I just always had the mentality they could at any point, which they could have just go, we're done here.
Right.
I feel like we could have screwed up that last show enough. They'd be like, 4 a week is a bit ambitious. Let's do none a week. So, 4 plus a 5th best of show, which is I have to say it that way.
Oh, is that what it is?
It's 4. It's where our schedule is Sunday through Thursday.
Yeah.
The Sunday's like a best of show of the week where we'll cut it together, and then the rest are all new shows. So yeah.
Right. Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, Kamau, it's been a pleasure. It's always nice catching up with you.
Yes, it's always good to talk to you. I wish we could do it more often, but I understand you have to maintain some journalism.
I don't have to maintain anything. We could hang out. We could put the kids together, we could shoot a thing with the kids for Totally Biased. I don't care.
I'm down with all that. Where do you live?
I have no integrity. In Jersey.
In Jersey.
But Upper West Side, that's nothing.
That's nothing. Yeah.
That's like a 10-minute ride for me.
It's nothing. All right. I'm down. Yeah, I'm down with it. I really, like I said, I used to read Laughspin all the time, and then I was like, not for my own, because there's nothing you could say. There's nothing anybody can say about the show that's not critical that I wouldn't be like, well, that's probably true. So I just didn't want to be. I just wanted to give the space to do that without me sort of having some sort of emotional response. No one's more critical of this show than I am.
I believe you.
My Twitter profile is a lot of times people go, your show is this because I'm like, yeah, you're right. And people are like, really? Yeah. Oh, you're cool. Yeah, you know.
Well, this isn't fun at all.
Yeah. I'm like, when it's actual criticism, like, yeah, you got a good point. We're figuring it out. So,
Well, thanks, Kamau. I appreciate it. Good luck with everything.
thank you, sir. Good luck with you.
Thank you. And there you have it. Thank you to W. Kamau Bell once again for spending some time with me. To you, Laughspin podcast listeners, be sure to tune in to Totally Biased on FXX every night at 11 p.m. Eastern when it returns on September 2nd. And check out TotallyBiased.com for the Totally Biased stand-up tour dates. It starts July 11th in Boston. Check it out. And if you haven't already subscribed to the Laughspin podcast, please, for the love of all that's holy, please do so. You could do it on iTunes, on SoundCloud, or Stitcher. If you'd like to get in touch with me, feel free to drop me a line at dylan@laughspin.com, DYLAN at laughspin.com, and be sure to follow us on Twitter at laughspin.com and on Facebook and Tumblr. And of course, you should also be checking out laughspin.com every day, many times a day, for a constant stream of info on the world of comedy. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time on the Laughspin Podcast.